Hello, my name's Richard Beatty from Killer Bee Tattoo Machines, and today I'm doing something that I haven't done before. I'm reviewing somebody else's tattoo machine. So this machine was sent to us from Rob Smead at Electrum over in America. It's called the Ergon tattoo pen, and this is the machine here. Now it comes in the box with, it's actually a battery powered machine. You can use this adapter here, so you can use your RCA connectors. It comes with 2 batteries and the connector for the RCA cable, 2 different grips with it, and there's a optional extra. So you've got the thin grip there, and I'd say this is about a 35mm grip, maybe something like that. I haven't measured it. And then the bigger grip, which is closer to 40mm. Again, I haven't measured it. So Rob sent us this machine because for a lot of years now, like, we've been speaking about tattoo machines and stuff, and maybe like 2 years ago he asked us if he could use the design of my Killer Bee Grip to develop into a machine that he was building. So I was fine with that. Just give me a couple of pointers about how it works, why I'd done it like I did it, and they've created their own version of that grip. I'll just show you one of my machines, and you can see the similarities in the grip shape. This is a custom machine. It's all engraved with opal and that, but it gives you the idea of the difference in size and shape. It's very, very similar. So that's a 40mm, so this is probably coming in at about 35. So when I designed the Killer Bees, it was all about an injury that I had to my hand, and I wanted to make a machine that was comfortable for me to use and that reduced the strain in my hand, which was being caused by the tattoo machine. And it worked, and I think Rob recognised that, and that's why he wanted to work with us on the design of the grip. So he sent us this machine over, partly because I was involved in the design of it, but I wanted to do a review of it as well, because I think it deserves it. So first of all, the packaging's lovely. When you open it up, it's a lovely box. It comes with your charging cable, it comes with your RCA cable, you get a sticker, and you get the tools. One of the things that you don't get in, or that didn't come with this, was some grease, which would be a good thing to put in the pack. But you get a choice of 3. Where are they at now? So these are the little swash plates. Now so the drive mechanism is done by a swash plate, which is these little things here, and you've got a 3mm, a 3.5mm, and a 4mm, and you get the 2 batteries and the 2 grips. So obviously, first thing I did was want to take it to bits and have a look inside it. And in initial thoughts on it were the build quality is really good, the finish is really good, the tolerances are really nice. This is a nicely engineered machine. You get the grip off by unscrewing it all the way, and you have, there's not a lot in the back of the grip, it's quite hollow. Cartridge goes in at the front, and there's a lot of space in the back. Now that's quite a good thing, because it stops ink being able to travel up small areas or get stuck in small areas if you were to get ink up in that end. Then you've got this section here. I'll show you how the battery comes off as well. The battery again just screws off like that. So that is essentially your tattoo machine. In there you've got the motor, and then there you've got your swash plate, and then in this section here you've got the drive system, which is running off being pushed by the swash plate, and it's running in 4 channels up and down to keep it straight. So again, like, really nice. There's plenty of power in it. It's certainly quite a punchy little machine. In initial views on it, I was really impressed with it. Feels nice, looks good, and it's really well engineered. So I had a little go with it, and the first thing I realised was it had the 3.5 in it, and I run with a 4mm in the Killer Bee, so I swapped that out. Now I'm just going to show you the process of swapping out, because I did notice something here that people need to be aware of. So to get this into the swash plate, you need to remove this part. Now that is extremely tight, and you're not gonna be able to do it just by gripping it just with your hands. So what I did was I got a bit of rubber. You could do this with a leather belt and just tighten it around it like that, and it just gives you a bit extra grip on the smaller part, and that's loosened that off. So you can, like I say, a leather belt. The other day I did it with a strap off a bag. Remove that, unscrew that, and there you have your swash plate. It spins around like that, and the drive mechanism is sitting on the edge of that pushes from the side, and then obviously to the center when it's running in the channel. So I changed it out to a 4mm, put it back together, and initially I realised that I'd something wasn't running right. So there was a couple of things that I hadn't noticed, but I needed to take it back to bits to make sure I put the crank on. Now, when I went to take it to bits, I hadn't tightened that up as tight as it had been. I just did it by hand, never thought about it. But when I tightened that, when I loosened that up, what happened was this bit came off, and I unscrewed that bit, but that bit was left right in the bottom of that bit. That was a problem, because that was not easy to get out. So for anybody using these, you're gonna go inside it to change the swash plate, I'm sure. When you put it back together, make sure that you put this back on tight. Another thing that you need to make sure of as well, when you change the crank, the drive shaft has got a chamfered edge, so part of the side has been flattened for where the grub screw goes onto. You need to make sure, and that's what I'd done wrong. I hadn't realised it had a chamfered edge, so I'd tightened it up on the non-chamfered edge, which caused it to not have enough grip, and that's why it was making a noise. That's why I had to take it to bits, and then I realised I had a secondary problem in that was now stuck in that part, and it did take quite a lot of getting out. Those are two points that I would say are pretty important, and that's another reason why I'm saying put some grease in the thing. I would grease that plate, just put a little bit of grease on there, and then when you assemble it, now I don't know whether can you see into there with the camera, there's a little nipple to the side, and then like it's almost like a clover leaf, four-leaf clover, and the leaves sit in channels, and that's what stabilizes it. Come back to that in a minute, because there's another point about that mechanism. So you've got that offset crank. I'll just show you this now actually. Once I'd put it back together and I started tattooing with it, I realised that it had quite a soft feel to it. Now I'm not used to soft hitting tattoo machines because the Killer Bees are very hard hitting, and this has got no soft hit mechanism in it. It's not designed to be a soft hitting machine, but in my opinion it is, and this is why. The forces on that bearing are sideways, it's not just rotational, because it's a swash plate and it's at an angle. The forces are actually pushing sideways, and that bearing there, and all bearings unless you're using a roller bearing, there's a little bit of play in it. There's also a little bit of play in the drive mechanism. It moves just slightly in its channel. It has to, otherwise it wouldn't be able to move at all, because there wouldn't be any gap. So that gap that's in there is actually allowing the drive push rod, we'll call it a plunger, to twist slightly. So there's a bit of movement there, and there's a bit of movement there, which at the tip of the needle creates a feel of a soft hit. It's not massive, but it's something that I'm not used to, and it's took a little bit of getting used to. So again, I'm going to use this bit of rubber just to make sure that that's nice and tight. You could even use rubber on that as well. And then once that's on nice and tight, you'll see there's a rubber O-ring on there and on there. That one there is the one that was gripping to the grip and helped pull off the pull this part off. So again, just I think just a little bit of grease on there for whoever's using these things. Just put a little bit of grease on there and it'll help towards that problem not happening. You could put a tiny little bit on there as well, because it'll just help it is a very tight fit, you know. So that's it, down to the thread now, and then you just screw that in. That's the drive mechanism, and that's well, it's the only problem that I found, really. Another thing though, I'm not used to using batteries, I'm used to using RCAs. So I was really looking forward to trying the battery system on it. Right, so I've got a needle here. So you switch it on by holding down the power button. Comes up with Electrum on there, which is really cool. Now the battery's not massive. It's certainly not as heavy as I expected it either. Charge port at the end, USB-C, the other one, yeah. So obviously I was pretty keen to try with the battery and see how it performed, and it feels quite nice. It's reasonably well balanced. Now just look at this. Not many pen machines that you can do that with. Now that's with the heavier, bigger grip on, but that's almost perfect balance. There really isn't many machines that you can do that with. We tattoo at that angle, so it's very close. It's slightly front heavy there, which is a good thing. So the front's heavier, at least at the point where you hold it. It's certainly balanced. But we sit at about that angle, so if it was more weight at the back and it's falling out of your hand like that, then you're gonna have to hold it tighter. It's gonna cause hand strains. But this is very slim. It's easy to rotate, and the balance is really quite nice. Now, just on the rotation, the way I've done these grips was it's like a gear on the back of your bike. If you turn it there, at the bottom it turns quite fast, but if you turn it there, it just turns slowly. So you've got different leverage points, because we turn the machines quite a lot from, you know, going overhanded, underhanded, and different angles and stuff. So the rotation of the machine's really quite important, and this feels really nice from the pendulum motion that we're using, to, you know, getting a nice tight hold of it for lining, and yeah, so it's really quite comfortable to use. It's pretty easy to bag. You've got to bag it in like 2 halves, but if obviously you need to change the battery through the tattoo. Now I had no idea how long this battery was going to last, so I tattoo quite fast. I use quite a high voltage. Obviously the voltage range is different on this motor, so that's it running there. It's at 4.8 volts. That's really quite slow. It's about 6.7. Now there is a little bit of noise comes from the swash plate as well. I can hear, but generally the motor's running smooth. There's not a lot of vibration. I think most of the vibration is actually coming from the needle. And yeah, it's quite quiet as well. So I started tattooing with it, and you know, that's when I realised that the soft hit, I am really not used to that. So it slowed me down quite a lot, which kept me jumping back to the Killer Bee, because I felt like I was, you know, not producing what I was wanting to quick enough. I was having to go over the skin a lot more. than I normally do. But that said, this is absolutely ideal for black and grey, soft black and grey. It's just got enough soft hit to make it that you're not packing that colour in too fast, but enough power and speed to be able to crank it up if you do want to whack it in there. So I found that cranking up the battery is where I needed to go, and it will go up quite a way. But what happens when you crank up the battery to get to a speed where I was comfortable with? It was killing the battery. What I found was I was using the battery in about 2.5 hours, which then meant obviously you've got to wrap the battery separate to that bit, so that you can adjust your depth. So you need to be able to hold that bit to adjust your depth, so that bit can't be wrapped with that bit, and then you need to be able to take the battery off, so that bit can't be wrapped with that bit, so you can't be taping none of this. But yeah, I was going through a battery in about 2.5 hours. Now I don't know what people are getting out of batteries, because I don't use batteries. To be honest with you, I don't agree with the whole principle of it because of the weight. So I used my batteries, and now I was onto the RCA connector. Obviously I put the batteries back on charge, but I wanted to try this as well. So when I put the RCA connector on, now I don't have a power supply here to power this up to show you, but when it's powered up, there's a light around there that lights up just to show that the machine's getting power, which is a nice feature. The RCA connector is sunk down into that section, so if you were to drop it, you're not going to damage the RCA connector. And the right angle connector that they send with it, which is a similar type to what I use anyway, sits down into there, so it's nice and neat. It's got a really thin cable on it, very similar to the ones that I use, so it's really light, you don't feel it, but taking that weight off the end, even though it's not a lot, really does change the feel of this machine. Now take that off there again. It's a little bit more front heavy now, you see, so it's really difficult. It's front heavy, so the balance there, in my opinion, is better than that. So when I went to plug the RCA connector bit on and started using it like that, and I was like, this is really nice. It just feels a lot better, the balance, the way it moves. I don't have a problem with RCA connectors because of the type of workstation that RCA cables, because of the type of workstation that I use. Ever since I was using the station that I've got, I've never had any cable catching problems at all, which seems to be the only problem that people complain about, and that's why they want battery as well. I get it, but I'm not tattooing in the middle of a field. I'm tattooing in my studio, so I see why people want to use batteries, but I prefer not to have to change the battery throughout the day. I prefer not to have to make sure that I charge the battery, or else I'm going to be having a bad day. I just prefer to plug and play, you know. So the fact that this is RCA compatible as well, I think is brilliant, and it's done really nicely. And when the machine is assembled in that format, I think it's better. I prefer the power, it's just more controllable. The soft hit's still there, but you can run at a higher voltage, and you know you're not gonna be flattening your battery in a matter of a couple of hours. So yeah, I haven't really tried it with the smaller grips because I personally don't like them. This is hand strain waiting to happen, but there is people that like to be literally cramped up on a tiny little grip. In my opinion, you're gonna end up with hand strains. This is nice. I'd say this is the grip that most people use, and that's why it's in there. But from experience, my machines have interchangeable grips as well, because I know people say I want the smaller grip, but hand strains. This is ideal. I'm just used to using a much fatter grip. I actually use a 50mm grip, so this is about a 35mm grip. I actually use a 50mm grip, so it'd be interesting to see what this would be like with a 50mm grip. But yeah, the The price point is $425, which is absolutely amazing for the quality of this. I think that's one of the best things about it, to be honest with you. There's a lot of good things about it. Like I say, the finish, the anodizing is lovely, the engineering, the CNC is lovely, the accuracy is lovely, but yeah, it's a $425. That's a really cheap machine. The value is incredible at this level of manufacturing. So yeah, so the Ergon, Electrum Ergon, is it tattoo pen he calls it? Yeah, the Electrum Ergon tattoo pen. Rob, I'm really impressed with it, mate. You've done an absolutely fantastic job. I know you spent a lot of time working on it, and I can see that you haven't cut any corners, and I know that you've tried to keep this at a very affordable price. So, and you have done. This is very impressive engineering at that price point. The machine itself, it's simple. The battery's just a on, off, up, down. It hasn't got timers or anything like that, which again I think's a bit unnecessary. So there's no gimmicks. It's all the gimmicks are taken away, and it's just a good, honest tattoo machine that is. It's got something for everybody. It's got the battery. It's got the RCA connectors. It's got the different size grips. It's got plenty of power, and it's got that soft hit feel without it being too soft. I'm not used to it. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. I'm just not used to tattooing like that. Over time, I'm sure, you know, it would just, you know, become normal. But and I will be using it more, because I do actually enjoy using it. So there's certainly for black and grey pieces, if you know, if I've got a portrait to do, I might pick this up instead of the Killer Bee, because when I'm running 4mm, that hits really hard. So if which I do actually have machines set up, I have my machine set up in 3 and 3.5 as well. But yeah, I would be faced with the choice of my Bumblebee, a 3 or a 3.5, or this, and that 4mm, but with the soft feel, is quite a nice in between sort of feeling. So I'm definitely going to be using it more, and I'm really impressed with it. Really impressed with it. It's a really good tattoo machine. So well done to Rob for putting it all together, and the guys at Electrum. And yeah, I hope you do well with it. Anybody that's buying one of these machines, I think you're going to be getting an absolute bargain. Just be aware of those couple of points that I said about the how tight you put things in the little chamfer on the crank, and you'll be fine. Well done, guys. Fantastic machine.